Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here is part 2 on the prep masking and paintwork on this Mazda 3. So the name of the color is Soul Red Crystal and the color code is 46V. So yeah, this video here is the masking stage. And have a look at the color on the inside of those door jambs. Man, that is nothing like the color on the exterior of the vehicle. Like, I can see here, just in the little thumbnail viewing window I've got when I'm narrating, that's nothing like it. Like, it is just a really bland, dirty, lifeless version of what's on the outside of the car. And I'm sorry, Mazda, but that is just slack, you know. I know that these Mazdas are, pretty reasonably expensive, you know, like they're more so expensive than some of the other Japanese vehicles, and as much as I do like the color that's on the outside of the vehicle, I don't really think that candy paint has much of a place on daily drivers. I've actually been enjoying the experience in getting the spray candies when these colors have been out, but I don't know. I guess that's up to the individual, but I personally think that they should really be reserved for custom cars, because not all painters can get these kind of colors to look good. So I think it's sort of opening up the can of worms for just average paint jobs in the future on these cars. But I guess, yeah, it's up to it's up to you what you think of that, and I would actually be interested to see what you guys think of the candy colors starting to find their way onto daily driver vehicles. Another thing that I found out recently is that candies actually fade over time, and pretty badly from what I can tell. So you know, you obviously pay more for the paint job, whether or not it's on your own vehicle and you're getting a respray done, you're going to be paying some pretty good dollars, or whether or not you're buying it as a, you know, a factory painted car like this, I'm sure you would be paying a decent chunk extra, because it is a candy paint job. And then you're paying for something that's really just going to look good for a few years, especially in this West Australian sun. These Mazdas, even with normal paint on them, just don't last. So yeah, maybe they just made the door jambs look so bad so that within 5 years the outside's gonna fade down to the inside color, and then the whole thing will at least look the same. But yeah, to me, I think I mentioned it in the first video, I would never buy a Mazda unless I really liked them so much that I needed a Mazda, and then I would actually respray it straight off the bat. I'd like buy a new one and then have to respray it, because they don't put enough paint on. They simply don't put enough paint on their vehicles, and I don't know. I don't wish Mazda, I wish really any companies any ill will, but I don't know. Maybe if they were to see this, they could just up the quality of the paintwork a little bit, but I can't see that happening. Either way, all of that aside, we're going to be masking this job up in this video. So one thing that I don't do is wax and grease remove the entire job before I mask. I know lots of people do. I think I've mentioned it. In fact, I have mentioned it in a few other videos. But I've found wax and grease removing a job before you mask it and after you mask it, or not before you mask it, but only after you mask it, I found it makes no difference. So at the end of the day, if you find it makes a difference, go for it. But to me, it's just an extra stage that I can skip out, as I say, without lowering the quality of the end job. If it did lower the quality of the end job, absolutely, I would be wax and grease removing before and after I did my masking. But I've found that it doesn't make any difference to the cleanliness of the job or anything like that, so I just simply don't do it. Now, a lot of people do struggle with these door jam, masking up these door jams, and I found this is the best way with that false edge masking. Now, I've actually got a video that goes a little bit more into depth doing that false edge masking. You'll probably just have to dig through my channel. Have a look. It's quite an old video, but I basically sat down for a few minutes and showed you how I flipped the edge of the masking tape over and then run it across your knee. It's one of those things that, like, you know, at the start I wasn't very good at it, but practice makes perfect. It's like anything. I guess it's like spray painting, really. Like, no one was really born a natural spray painter, you know. No one was born good at spray painting. It's learned, obviously, you know. I wasn't born with any super amazing, great talents in spray painting. It's something that I learned, you know. And I guess learning is one of those things that I'll pick, say you've got 10 different people. Each one of those people might have a slight variation on how they do things. I will try every single 10 people's different way of doing it, and I'll pick my favorite. And the first person might have a little masking trick that I like, but then the second person might have a little paint blending trick that I like. So I'll use a bit of mix and match everyone's little techniques, create your own even sometimes, and yeah, come up with your own little bag of tricks that works for you. So one thing you may have noticed that I did do before I put any bits of tape down, I did at least make sure the edge that the tape is going over is nice and clean. There might be a very light layer of dust over the exterior panels. Obviously dusted it off with a high pressured air blower. But yeah, just what you don't want to go and mask over a thin film or a thin layer of dust or anything like that. You don't want to be masking over grease or something like that. So I did mention before that I don't usually wax and grease remove my jobs before I mask. However, obviously with a wheel arch like that, I'll clean that down. So when that was out in the workshop, when I was prepping the job up, I just got an old rag, got some thinners onto it, or even a bit of water. If it's just mud under there, a bit of water can do it. Just get it right up underneath that back lip, so that I can, yeah, obviously put my tape into the back edge and have it stick. Now, what I've decided to do next is get the edges all masked, obviously, throw a piece of plastic over that car, and then get the wet on wet primer down on the rear bumper cover here. So I'm wiping that down with some anti-static cleaner and then wiping that off. And I did give it a good tack rag down, obviously, give it a high pressure air blow as well. And this is just a bit of 1K plastic primer. We use the Protect brand 1K plastic primer here, and look, they say 15 minutes, but I've found that like 1 or 2 minutes is enough. It is so thin that it flashes off so quickly, especially with the spray booth set to either 30 degrees or the ambient temperature of the day being above 30 degrees. So once I've got the wet on wet primer down and the plastic primer down first, obviously, because that was a raw plastic bumper cover, I then, while that's drying, start doing, finish off the masking. Obviously, not start doing the masking, finish the masking off. So yeah, I like those little collab blades. I've actually had so many questions, so many people ask about those blades that I found it easier just to put a link in the description. And yeah, Colad is the brand that, well, the company that makes them, and I think they actually contacted my sponsors, Spray Guns Direct, and they said, hey, do you want to do like a little Colad blade with a Gunman logo on it? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it, you know. They're not an expensive thing. I'm not going to retire off the sales of these Colad blades. I just reckon it's cool, and it's cool that they were thinking about me. So look, we don't actually have them yet, but it's been something that's been thrown up. So when they are available, I'll be sure to let you guys know, and I'll update the link in all of my videos so that it will be the one that goes to the Gunman Colad blade link. So obviously, yeah, just pretty straightforward with masking. It's just cut it out and tape it down. Like, I was actually taught to mask with bits of paper, so instead of doing this, you would just use pieces of paper. You'd still, all your edge masking wouldn't change. You'd do all your edge masking and then surround the edge masking with pieces of paper, and then put the plastic over, and then tuck the plastic up underneath the paper. So I look back on it and I think now it's like, wow, what a waste of time. And it actually does leave sort of like little gaps that the overspray could kind of get in, whereas this is quicker, easier, I find cleaner as well. Some people are obviously going to disagree with that. Everyone's got their own little methods that work. As I was saying, you know, if you still use paper, to me that's old school, but if it works for you and you find the results are, you know, good for you, go for it. You know, that's one thing I really don't mind. I don't let what other people do in their lives change the way I live mine. And that's actually one thing I've been noticing lately, like especially on social media. Like, I was taking a bit of a step back from comment sections and even Instagram and Facebook. I barely use Facebook anymore. I don't like it. And even Instagram, you just start to see those niggly comments that people leave, and even little things about other people's opinions on guns, you know, like whether or not it be Sada or DeVilbiss, you know, like these guys that just get so caught up in their gun has to be the best, you know. The way I see it from an outsider's point of view, it's like, why do you even care, man? If this guy thinks that DeVilbiss is a crap and they're too slow, let him think it, man. It doesn't affect your life. You can go on with your life knowing that they're not too slow, or knowing that you can put your 1.4 mil and have it go just as fast as a Sada. You know, it shouldn't really affect you what someone else thinks. You know what I mean? Like, and same with I voice a lot of my opinions here. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean you have to hate me, or I have to hate you because you have a different opinion, you know. But yeah, look, I guess I've just been having a bit of a positive change and stepping away from some of that social media, and I have found that, like, early on in myself leaving social media, especially personal Facebook, which I don't use anymore, early on you'd feel like, oh, am I gonna miss out on something? And then once you leave it, you're like, man, I wasn't missing out on anything. You know what I mean? But keep watching Gunman videos, that's all I can say. And definitely be sure to stay tuned for the next one, which is coming up next week, depending on when you watch it. If you're watching it later, well then it's probably already up. Go and watch it now.